Hello everyone and welcome back to the Angels franchise. The Angels start out the month of May 11-18 and they face the Tigers in a 4-game set. We're going to be recapping what went down in this series here to start the episode. This was the first start, at least on the channel, from Jack Kahanowicz's. He's been pretty good actually in the 2 other games he has started this season. In fact, very good with only the 2.36 ERA. He starts the day by getting Zach McKinstry pretty easily grounding out to short, 1 down. And then he gets Parker Meadows with a pretty favorable call from the umpire. Meadows obviously not happy about it, but 2 up, 2 down for Kahanowicz's, but then he leaves one hanging against Kerry Carpenter, and he punishes by getting this one to right field with a stand-up double. So inning not quite over, but then Kahanowicz's able to put down Riley Green. And that will end the first. So solid first inning of work for Jack Kahanowicz's. The Angels have struggled to get it going offensively so far this season. Recent lineup change as Taylor Ward is plunked. If you didn't know, Taylor Ward is actually on a 15-game hit streak coming into this one, looking for number 16, as Trout will get this one through the infield with a base hit. So we've got runners on first and second for the new 3-hole hitter. That's Zach Neto. And he gets one back up the middle, but a nice play by the second baseman. Can they turn 2? No. Neto safe at first. So fielder's choice, runners on the corners with 1 out for Jorge Soler. And he will have a nice swing at that and gets it over the shortstop McKinstry, which scores the first run of the day in this one, and it goes to the Halos. 1-0 early on in this one. Still bottom first as Nolan Shanuel comes up, and a perfect makes its way into center field, and that's going to score Neto from second. And look at us, 2-0 immediately in this one, just in the first inning. Rengifo, who has been on fire as of late, another perfect, and this one finds its way into the gap. As it's in right center field, it's going to score 1, and the other runner will stop at third. 3-0 Halos, and that brings up Logan O'Hoppe, who crushes one to left field. No doubt about this one. 392, 108 exit velo. And the Angels are up 6-0 with only 1 out in the inning to start this one. Absolutely huge to see from O'Hoppe. Only his second on the year. He has been struggling to find the power early on in this series. And Detroit at this point decided to take out the starter. They had seen enough. He only got 1 out in the game. 2 outs now for Mickey Moniak, still in the bottom of the first as he pushes this to opposite field, and that will get down for a double for the center fielder. As he's into second base, easily even thought about going for 3 there at the very end. Taylor Ward looking for that hit. It's still the first as we're all the way back to the top of the order, and he does get the hit. Moniak with decent speed will find his way home off of that one. 7 runs come across in just the first inning, and Taylor Ward on to 16 hits. So now on to the second. Kahanowicz's really being blessed with this one. Gets to the second with no problem. All he has to do is not allow 7 runs, and he's on for a pretty easy victory. Advance to the bottom of the second, Zach Neto at the plate, and he hammers this one opposite field for the 8th run on the day for the Angels already. So the Halos having no issues with offense, at least to start this series here against the Tigers. Let's see if they can keep it up in the last 3 games. So 8-0 as Kahanowicz's just settling in now at this point. We're top 3 as this grounder gets through. He does have 2 outs here, only needs 1 more to get out of the inning, but he's going to allow back-to-back base hits, this one to Parker Meadows. So runners on first and second, as now he faces Carpenter, leaves a fastball right down the pipe, and Carpenter does not miss this one, sending it over 400 feet out of the stadium. And so 3 runs for Detroit, making this one a little bit more interesting. Still up 5, though, as we advance to the bottom of the third. Mike Trout, 2 outs, a runner on third. And he will get a base knock back up the middle and an RBI for his efforts. 1 run away from double digits now for the Halos, as Brant Herter is the new pitcher for Detroit. Fast forward again to the 5th. 9-3 is the score. This one gets past the diving Shanuel. And then Meadows, the top of the order, really the only part of the order giving any issues to Kohanowicz, as now he's got runners on second and third for Kerry Carpenter, who is the man who had the 3-run shot earlier. This time he'll ground to Neto, and Neto can't make a play at home, so he takes the force out at first. So another run does come across there. 9-4, and even another run is going to come across here unless Ward can make a throw, but no, safe at the plate, an RBI for Riley Green. And it is 9-5, at which point we decided to take Jack out of the game. It was an admirable effort, but really wish he had put together a better performance with all the run support he had. Ben Joyce comes in to clean this one up. So in the top of the fifth, only has to face Gleyber Torres, and he leaves one hanging, but Torres unable to punish, and there's out number 3 in the fifth. And then Carpenter continued in the next inning, and he was frying 102 miles per hour on that fastball, and just paints on the edge right there. Nothing Torkelson can say about that one. Right on the money. Strikeout number 1 in the inning. Well, there's strikeout number 2 in the inning. Ben Joyce was absolutely on fire, and he ends up striking out the side in the 6th. Elite performance from Joyce. And then Mike Trout, bottom of the 6th. He gets in on the home run action. Deep to center field, and this is going to be the longest home run so far on the season for the Angels. Trout hits this one 427 feet to give the Angels 10 runs even on the day. Neto will walk. He's the next man up, as Soler now gets an opportunity. Good power deep to left center field, but it dies just in front of the wall. Neto with good enough speed. He will score from first after walking, and it is 11-5 Angels over Tigers. And the score stayed that way for the majority of the rest of this one. We've got Chase Silseth in here. 2 outs in the top of the 9th, only needing 1 more to get out with a victory. And he does allow a no-doubt homer to Parker Meadows, who was really the biggest problem for the Angels pitching today. Meadows seemed to have us figured out, able to get a number of base hits, but that was it. Victor Gonzalez will come in because Silseth was tired. Green doesn't even bother swinging at the slider. And it's a victory for the Angels with a ton of runs from an offensive explosion in this one. So we start out the series 1-0. So now on a 2-game win streak after getting a dub on the last day of April against Seattle. So on to game number 2. The Angels looking to extend this little mini win streak they've currently got going. And Taylor Ward looking to extend the hit streak to a total of 17 games. It's Yusei Kikuchi on the mound today for the Angels, and we are underway in this one with 2 runners on already for Kikuchi, and he will actually walk the bases loaded. So 3 on, 2 outs in the inning, but a harmless pop-up from Colt Keith that Joe Adell does have to chase down ends the inning. So a scary way to start, but nothing happening for the Tigers. If you're wondering why they're in the exact same jerseys again, there was this weird bug where for whatever reason they had a custom jersey be auto-selected every single time. I noticed it after this game, so this is the last time you'll see this weird spring training jersey. But I did want to point out that that is why, as Jake Rogers will bring home the first run of the day with a double. So 1-0 Detroit as they take the lead. Kikuchi not pitching super well early on, but he will get out of the second with a strikeout here. But Rogers brings the lead to the Tigers. So now fast forward to the bottom of the 3rd. Taylor Ward and the Angels offense looking to get it going. Full count here as Ward, a drive deep to dead center field, and that one just gets over the wall. So Taylor Ward will extend the hit streak with a solo shot that ties this game up in the 3rd. Ward has surprisingly maybe been the best player on this team in the early parts of the season, increasing that trade value hopefully. Fast forward another inning, it's the bottom of the 4th with Luis Rengifo at the plate, and he'll do the same thing but a little bit better, no doubt about this one. Luis Rengifo again straight away center field, and another run comes across with a solo shot for the Angels. So now it is 2-1. Mickey Moniak, another inning later. Can he do the exact same thing? Well, this is pretty well struck to right center. It will actually bounce off the wall, and it's almost too well hit as he nearly gets thrown out at second. But a leadoff double for Moniak, and that brings up the hottest player in baseball, Taylor Ward, who's going to get another RBI here with a hit to center field. Throw not in time, and it is 3-1 for Los Angeles as Taylor Ward stays red hot. Yusei Kikuchi did go over 5 innings, so he is eligible for a victory here today. But this is Dakota Hudson on the mound in the 7th, as this one eats up Yoan Moncada at third. So a runner on, but then a strikeout for Hudson. Gets one gone in the inning, and now the double play is in order. And that's exactly what we're going to get. 6-4-3. Jumping Rengifo throws out the runner at first, and that will end the inning. Bottom 7 now. Angels looking for some insurance runs. This is well struck from Mickey Moniak. Gets over the head of the right fielder. Moniak on his way to second, and he's in with another stand-up double. Nolan Shanuel looking to bring him around, and he hits this opposite field. It gets down in front of the left fielder. Moniak with good speed takes off for home, and the throw is offline. So the Angels will score another to make it 4-1. So only that one run allowed early on by Yusei Kikuchi, and then the rest of the way it has been easy going for the pitching. And here comes Kenley Jansen to try to get a save here in the top of the 9th. Then he gets Jake Rogers, who is responsible for the only run on the day, to swing and miss. Parker Meadows will have a pretty harmless fly out, fairly deep to left field, but no problem for Taylor Ward. So only one more out to go for Kenley Jansen. He faces Matt Vierling. Can he get anything going for the Tigers? Well, another one fairly well struck on a hanging breaking ball, but again, short of the warning track, and Mickey Moniak makes the play to end game number 2. So the little mini win streak continues here for the Angels as they win a 3rd in a row and a 2nd against the Tigers. So as we advance to game number 3, we're looking for the series win here today. It is a 4-game set. Winning the 3rd game means a guaranteed series win, and it's Jose Soriano on the mound for us today. He's been quietly pretty good this season, though the walks have been far too many, and he does allow a leadoff hit here from Zach McKinstry. Second man up is Parker Meadows, who has been really good this series despite the Tigers' struggles, but he will pop out. And you might notice this is actually being played by the CPU. I thought maybe that I was just doing too well as the user, so I let the CPU have at it in this one, thinking that perhaps they would perform a little bit worse without me at the controls. But Soriano was honestly having one of his better outings, and that one is rocketed, but right at Nolan Shanuel. So no issues in the 1st inning. And Soriano would continue to play really well, striking out Jake Rogers here in the 3rd, and was just having no issues really for the most part in this one. Another strikeout, this time it's McKinstry. He did have the occasional walk. He wasn't perfect this outing, but he was really, really solid as he gets Meadows to pop out to Logan O'Hoppe, the catcher, and that will end the top part of the 3rd. So advance to the bottom of the 3rd. The Angels' bats have yet to get it going, but perhaps they will this inning as Mickey Moniak to opposite field. It hits the wall, and he will be in with a double. I'm not overly fond of the camera that the CPU uses when there's nobody controlling, so it might be a little hard to follow at times, but I'm here to explain things. Don't worry about it, as Taylor Ward does exactly the same thing as Mickey Moniak, but he stays at first and does bring Moniak around to score. 1-0 Angels, and Taylor Ward, 18-game hitting streak. There is nobody better in baseball right now, and for some reason, Riley Green refusing to swing, and he pitched right down the middle. Soriano in the 4th, still looking really, really good as he gets through the 4th inning with 0 issues, only allowing 2 hits so far today. Nolan Shanuel at the plate now. The 1-2 pitch on its way here in the bottom of the 4th, and he gets plunked. Hit him right in the hip. That can't possibly have felt very good. But that brings up Logan O'Hoppe, who has sort of been turning it around recently, and the hit and run is going to work to perfection as O'Hoppe opposite field, right center, and that is going to score the runner from first as he took off during the pitch. Just a perfectly executed hit and run from the Angels offense. Makes it 2-0, and Taylor Ward will draw a walk. Bottom of the 5th now, Ward takes off, and it's another perfectly executed hit and run, this time Neto and Ward, and Zach Neto brings another run around. Throw is close, but Ward is safe, and it is 3-0 Halos, as even without my help on the sticks, the CPU was just cooking against the Tigers. I don't know if we found them at sort of a bad stretch, but we just had the Tigers' number. Jose Suarez here in the top of the 6th is going to allow a home run, or at least it says it's a home run. I think if you look at that again, it's going to look like it bounced below the yellow line. But hey, what do I know? A home run is a home run. Bottom 7, as we're looking for more insurance. Zach Neto well struck to left, and that's over the fence. That one, no doubt about it, over the wall, and that was actually good for 2 more runs. There was a runner on first, and it's going to be 5-1 for the Angels as we head to the end part of this game. It's now top 9. Kenley Jansen looking for the final out, and he gets it on the cutter. So Kenley with a couple saves during this series, and the Angels have beaten the Tigers at very worst 3-1. So a great series for the Angels, and the win streak extends to 4. Taylor Ward extending his hit streak. Everything is kind of going the Angels' way here in Anaheim. So it's game number 4, looking for the sweep of the Tigers. It's Reed Detmers on the mound, and immediately Reed was absolutely cooking. I do have to say, I hate his windup. It takes ages, but outside of that, he was doing very, very well. Had basically no issues here in the first inning. He faces Riley Green, but he will ground out harmlessly to Moncada at third. And that's 3 up, 3 down for Detmers to start his day. Jump forward to the 2nd as Detmers continued to play well. He did allow a runner here, but with 2 gone in the top of the 2nd, it was basically no issue for him to get out of it. This is well struck deep to center, but Moniak there in front of the warning track. And that's 3 outs in the top of the 2nd. So now bottom of the 2nd, Halos bats looking to get it going. Logan O'Hoppe will draw a walk, which brings up Yohan Moncada. This is well hit to right field, and it gets over that short right field wall. There's not a lot of parks. That is a home run in. But here at Angel Stadium, it is 4 bags. Moncada with his 3rd homer of the season, and that starts the scoring in this one. So 2-0 Angels. Mickey Moniak, who's been playing really well during this stretch, will reach on an infield single. And perhaps we're not done here in the 2nd. Ryan Noda giving Nolan Shanuel the day off. He will get a base hit. That is the slowest outfield hit I've ever seen, and it does allow Moniak to get to 3rd. Bad throw, but Moniak does not take off for home. So runners on the corners, only 1 gone here in the 2nd. And this is Mike Trout's opportunity. An absolute liner nearly gets over the fence, bounces off. It's going to be a double for Trout, and it scores another run. So Mike Trout even getting in on the action. So now we advance to the top of the 3rd, 3-0 for Detmers, now on for a victory, and he continued to play really, really well. Striking out another runner on 2nd now for him, but this one right at Noda, who nearly is able to double them up there. And then against Colt Keith, it's another one that's fairly well struck, but Neto able to make that play with not much issue, and that'll end the top of the 3rd. Fast forward, bottom 4, Mickey Moniak at the plate, opposite field power, well hit for Mickey Moniak, and just inches away from being a homer off the top of the wall. But Moniak in with a double. 2 gone in the inning. It's Taylor Ward looking for that hit, and he does get it back up the middle into center field, and Moniak with his speed will score easily from 2nd, and it is 4-0 for the Angels. Reed Detmers in the 6th now, continuing to cook. He's not allowed a run, has some run support, should be no problem with the way he's pitching today to get a victory. Another strikeout for Detmers. Brant Herter back on the mound for Detroit in this series as Moniak This time over the fence, nearly 400 feet, as Mickey Moniak, have yourself a day, young man, the double the last time we saw him, and now 4 bags on the home run, his 4th of the season. Playing very, very well to start the month of May. So 5-0. Detmers continues all the way into the 8th, at which point he's starting to get tired, but he will strike out another in Dylan Dingler. So 1 gone in the 8th. Detmers gets another guy to pop out. Despite the fatigue, he's not having much issue. Do we let him go a full 9? I honestly don't think we do. The fatigue is a little bit too much, but he does get through 8 innings without allowing a run. And we advance and we allow Jose Quijada to finish out this game in the 9th. First man he faces is Riley Green. Pops up in the infield in foul territory, but Moncada is there and he will make the play. 1 gone. Vierling the last man, and this will be a chopper right back to Quijada. And he gets his man out. So a 5th win in a row for the Angels, 4 of those coming against the Tigers. So a 5-game winning streak, and we're nearing 500 once again. We only had 10 wins coming into this win streak, now up to 15. So not a bad stretch of games for the Halos. So after the win streak, it is time to do a bit more scouting with the Angels. And for the first time, we have positions other than starting pitcher to look at, and that is third baseman. And immediately a guy who jumped up at least a little bit is Darrell Littleton. He was already the MLB draft rank 6, but he's now the Angels draft rank 1. He has jumped Ben Carmona, the starting pitcher, and I think you can see why. This is just a surface level look, high potential, high starting overall. And here are his projected attributes. Elite contact guy in the future with average power, above average vision and discipline, as well as being a pretty solid fielder and elite speed out the gate, which at 6'5" and nearly 230 pounds is kind of wild. One thing that excites me about this guy is the fact that he does project to have good discipline along with the high stealing and speed. Does this not read as like the perfect leadoff guy in a lineup? That's sort of how it feels to me. And he's already 22. With that high starting overall, there's a good chance he can make an impact on the Angels team earlier rather than later, which is an important thing to consider with the Angels because of the fact that we're trying to build around Mike Trout in his mid-30s. The window is pretty tight for Mike Trout, so getting a guy that can make an impact very early would be a big deal. I like Littleton a lot. Let me know what you guys think. But then even if we can't land Littleton, there's a guy that projects more in the second round, Sean Morton, who I really like a lot. He is a bit different though. He's 4 years younger, has a much lower floor, so he's going to start at a lower overall, almost certainly. He also might have worse potential. There's a lot more scouting we have to do for Sean Morton, but these things project out really well. And he's very similar to Littleton. He looks to be a worse fielder, but with a stronger arm, and might have fairly similar speed. So for this week, we are going to just straight up scout Sean Morton. I need to know more about him. And then we're still scouting central third baseman and international starting pitchers. So after the 5-game win streak, the Angels find themselves 3 games below 500 and only 5 games back of the AL West leaders in the Texas Rangers. The Angels also currently have the best win streak in the MLB. The rest of this episode will basically be done by jumping into custom game entry conditions. I'm now going to turn on player highlight moments. So what this should do is allow us to jump in for Taylor Ward if he's about to lose his hit streak, as well as other big time moments. And we'll go ahead and do basically the rest of the month of May that way. But before that, I do just want to mention pitching really quick, something I didn't mention at the end of the last episode. Yusei Kikuchi has been incredible for us so far this season. He is only 2-3 so far as a starter, but his numbers are really, really solid. Jose Soriano has also been quite good. The whip not quite as good as Kikuchi, but still very solid, and an even better ERA. It's just that the walk numbers being all the way up at 19 already is pretty bad. Kyle Hendricks has probably been our worst starter at this point, and Jack Kahanowicz continues to be pretty solid. Reed Detmers also probably in the running for worst starter early on in the season. And some of the guys out of the bullpen have been atrocious. Specifically, I think Hans Kraus has been our worst. Jose Quijada has been bad. Victor Gonzalez has not been great. And Jose Suarez has been okay in spite of his 50s overall. So with scouting and the recap out of the way, let's get to some simulating. The win streak continues with a dub over Toronto, and now we have a moment to enter the game with Jose Suarez. So the win streak is on the line here for the Angels. There's 2 on, 1 gone in the inning. Dalton Varsho at the plate and Jose Suarez on the mound, and he is going to immediately get a fly out to Taylor Ward. 2 outs. Back to the top of the order for the Blue Jays, and he looks at strike 1 in there. Count is full. And this one hit pretty well to right center field. Mickey Moniak will chase it down and will get out of the jam. No runs come across. Angels still on to maintain the win streak. Fast forward in the same game, and it is the top of the 9th. 1 runner on, nobody out. Kenley Jansen looking to put this one away. 2 strikes to Will Wagner. Swing and a miss on the slider from Jansen. 1 gone. This one is crushed to left field, and it is out of here. Alejandro Kirk with a 2-run shot, a blown save for Kenley Jansen. And there's a chance that the win streak is ending here. 4-3 Blue Jays in the top of the 9th. So now Toronto will bring in their closer in the bottom half of the 9th, Jeff Hoffman. He is 16 for 16 on the season. We lead off with Nolan Shawnuel, still only batting the .209 on the season. And he's going to crush one to right field, but it flies out to the right fielder. Not quite enough power on the ball right down the middle. Mike Trout, the 3-hole hitter, could tie this one up with 1 swing of the bat. First pitch on its way. That is a meatball, but we're late on it. 0-2 is the count. Only 2 outs away from losing the 6-game win streak. Pitch on its way. Trout swings and misses at the slider. 2 gone. And now it's up to Jorge Soler. He's been a little bit cold as of late. Down to a .230 batting average. He fouls this one off. Down to his final strike. 0-2 is the count. Hoffman's pitch. Swing and a miss. It's another really good slider. And Hoffman is 17 for 17, as well as ripping the hearts out of the chests of Angels fans everywhere. Looking for the 7th win in a row. Instead, they fall to Toronto in the 2nd game of the series. One thing I do want to bring up, if the struggles continue for Shawnuel, do we consider sending him down? He's already regressing with contact versus lefties. I know he's a 70 overall. He still has all of his minor league options, and he's only 23. So at a certain point, if he can't turn it around, it might be worthwhile just to send him down to AAA. Just let him have a little bit of a reset for maybe a couple weeks and then come back up. His on-base percentage is still pretty solid at the .318, but obviously he draws a lot of walks. So if he could just hit for a slightly better average, he'd be on base quite a bit. And by the way, that game against Toronto did see the end of Ward's hit streak. So unfortunately, both streaks died that day. Final game of the series against the Blue Jays, bottom of the 9th, Moncada at the plate, and he's got a runner in scoring position, 2 gone, looking to be a hero, could walk us off with a homer here. Moncada pops this one to center field. It's pretty deep, but it's at the warning track, and it's game over. Toronto takes the series 2-1, as the Angels have now lost a couple in a row. So now 16-20 on the season. We'll get through this series against Baltimore, and now we've lost 4 in a row. So after winning 6, we've essentially just undone all of that hard work by losing 4 straight. So after a little bit more scouting on Darrell Littleton, it appears that he's not quite the prospect he was touted to be. He does appear pretty good still, but not quite as elite as I think he was projected. He drops all the way to the Angels draft rank 22. He does have the 80 to 91 potential and the high starting overall. Wouldn't be a bad pick, definitely not worth the number 2 overall pick. And in fact, there are other third basemen that the Angels now have higher on their board, including Kyle Tompkins, who again has really good speed, but just don't know enough about him yet. One other position I think is quietly a position of need is center field. Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak are both solid players, and Joe Adell even has pretty high potential at only 25 years old. But what I really want is an elite fielder with elite speed. Adele or Moniak could switch to left field or right field, but to get a center fielder that just has elite range and can save us runs defensively is something I really like having on the team. Those of you that are familiar with Brenton Doyle's game, he is basically what I think I'd be looking for. Of course, we could look to trade with the Rockies to get a guy like Brenton Doyle, but he is like their main building piece right now. I don't think that they would be willing to give him up. And what do you know? The top center fielder in this recruiting class is exactly the type of player I'm looking for. Elite fielding, elite reaction, and elite speed. The arm strength a little bit concerning, although it does appear to be above average potentially in the future. And at this point, I think we know the pitcher that we want if we do take a pitcher at number 2 overall. It's Ben Carmona. I just don't think that there's going to be anybody that's that much better. Although Robert Gonzalez is really trying to make a name for himself, jumping all the way from 35th to 3rd on our board. So now we are kind of to the point where we need to start looking deeper into the draft for additional starting pitchers. So we pick again at 43, and at that point I'm hoping to take James Ingebrigtsen. Still need to do more scouting on him, and we'll go ahead and get that done this week to make sure that he is truly a high quality prospect. And then we are going to finish up scouting on Sean Morton. So 3 very specific scouting assignments this week. We're going to get to know almost everything about Kevin Vasquez, see if maybe we would take him with our number 2 pick. Then we're going to learn more about James Ingebrigtsen, and we're going to finish scouting on Sean Morton as well. So let's see if we get swept by Baltimore. Indeed we do. So 5 losses in a row immediately following this 6-game win streak. That is just a brutal feeling. It doesn't feel good. It's like nothing ever happened. Can we break that losing streak against San Diego? No. 6 losses in a row, so an even 500 over the last 12 games. Just when I thought things were getting corrected a bit for the Angels, we have been absolutely atrocious on this homestand ever since the series against Detroit. A few games with only 1 run coming across, 1 against Toronto, 1 against Baltimore, and 1 against San Diego on the road. So Lair is dead cold right now. Neto is still on fire. Moniak has been absolutely killing it. He's up to a 313 average and has honestly been on a nice streak of hits other than the 0 against Toronto on 5-6. But he's on a couple hit streaks on either side of that. Taylor Ward still playing well, but definitely has cooled off. After the long hit streak, he has a couple 0s, a 1, and then a couple more 0s. So starting to fall behind a little bit. Rengifo has been cold after having a nice little hot streak on that win streak. Moncada and Trout is still down at a 220, and the regression is hitting him like a truck right now. This is really not exciting to see. Logan O'Hoppe also struggling. He is losing power as we speak. He still only has the 2 home runs so far this season. He's supposed to be one of our best power bats. So the last time this was happening, I made some lineup changes, and it might be time to do that again. So against righties, we're going to try something a little bit funky. Mickey Moniak is going to now lead off, and then Taylor Ward will be second. Neto will remain third. He has been absolutely great in this role, playing very well since returning from injury. Trout was second, now bumped down to 4th. He has high batting clutch and of course still really good power, especially against righties. So him being 4th as kind of a cleanup man might make a little bit more sense with the current roster. Rengifo will jump to 5th because he does also have decent batting clutch. Shawnuel will be 6th. Soler drops from 4th to 7th with his struggles, and then O'Hoppe and Moncada at the 8 and the 9. I'd like to point out that Zach Neto is currently batting a 520 against lefties, which is disgusting. Mickey Moniak 368, Taylor Ward 344. So for facing a lefty, we're absolutely crushing. The issue is that most of the pitchers we face are righties, where outside of Travis d'Arnaud, who does not play much, we only have a couple guys just barely scratching 302. So with that in mind, I actually think our lineup against lefties is probably fine and doesn't need to be touched. It seems like we are crushing against lefties, but righties, something's got to change. We cannot hit right-handed pitching right now. So let's see if the loss streak continues against San Diego, and it does. And once again, only 1 run comes across. This is just embarrassing from the Angels. We do finally get on the right track with a win under Jose Soriano, 9-3. Did the Bats finally get it going? They did, as Kevin Newman leads off, coming off the bench. Nolan Shawnuel with a hit, Trout with a couple hits and a couple RBIs. So this is much better, much more the performance we want to see. Logan O'Hoppe, we might need to have a conversation about him as well, potentially getting sent down just temporarily to hopefully catch fire at AAA or AA and then come back up. Because right now with Logan, this is is absolutely not what we want to see. He's supposed to be a building block of this team, and right now he's just struggling a lot. It's still very early stages. We're still in the month of May. I'm going to give him more of a chance, but just something to keep in the back of your mind that we might want to consider in the future. But hey, now a 3-game win streak as we beat the Dodgers, of all teams, a couple of times. And we have finished mostly scouting Kevin Vasquez, who does look to be really, really, really good. 4-year junior, he's going to have the high starting overall. He's going to have the high potential. The potential is at worst an 85. He has elite speed. He has elite stealing. He has elite reactions. He has elite fielding. This is everything that basically I want in a center fielder. I'm not that concerned that the bat isn't quite there, because even if he can just bat like a 230, what he would bring defensively is worth it. It's either him or Carmona for that number 2 pick. We know a little bit more about James Ingebrigtsen, and he does just look like he's going to be a really quality starting pitcher that should not really be an issue to hopefully grab in the second round, assuming other teams haven't discovered him. And then I really also don't think that Sean Morton would be a bad second round pick either. Although as a third baseman, he is not a great fielder, but he can play first base, he can play left field, so that could potentially be covered up. Also, I have to say, it does appear that MLB The Show this year has done a much better job of not having relief pitchers so high on the board. It used to be that you would see relief pitchers go in like the top 5 picks, which is pretty crazy unless it's like a super generational talent. I'm just scrolling through the top 100 MLB prospects, and unless I've missed one, I don't think we've seen a relief pitcher yet. So that is a very worthwhile change, and I just found the first one. It's Thomas Ellis, a closing pitcher, and he is ranked 48th on the MLB board. So a really good change from San Diego Studios. Appreciate that relief pitchers are no longer taking up a lot of the top 50. So I'd be curious to know what you guys think about Kevin Vasquez versus Ben Carmona. I'm not sure. I like both of these prospects a lot. My lean right now is Carmona, just because I do think starting pitching is way more of a need. Back to simulating. The Angels have dropped the 3rd game to the Dodgers, but won the first 2 against the Athletics in a 4-game series against the division rival. 15 runs come across in a 3rd win against the Athletics, as Trout is starting to pick it up. He's up to a 232 average, 3 hits, 2 RBIs, including a homer. Moncada with 3 RBIs, 5 RBIs for Joe Adell, and Reed Detmers with a win, allowing 3 earned runs in 6 innings pitched. Can we sweep the A's? We can. A full sweep of a division rival. That feels good, as they are at the bottom now, 14 games back of the Rangers. Angels hovering just under 500 for a lot of this season so far. Talk about a streaky team, by the way. We open the month 6 wins in a row. We then lose 7 straight. We then win 3 more with a loss in the middle, and then another 4 wins. So weird month for the Angels. They just cannot figure out if they want to be decent or not. Series against Miami back at home, win the first one, and then we get to set more scouting assignments after losing the second game. So we're 24 and 27 approaching the end of May, and that currently puts us about 2 games back of the Royals in the wild card. So we're in the picture at the very least for now. So we now have Kevin Vasquez 100% scouted, 84 to 94 potential, 61 to 71 overall. He's a pretty big dude with incredible speed and fielding. Ugh, the more I look at him, the more I like him. I know that the most obvious choice is a pitcher. Somebody talked me out of taking Kevin Vasquez. So we're learning more about these center fielders internationally. We didn't learn that much, it appears, as we're only 15% on Todd Dennison, but he is MLB rank 46 and has jumped up to 28th for us. And he looks to be a good fielder with elite speed. So perhaps we can get our center fielder in the second round and still get Carmona in the first. So this week, we're going to go ahead and scout Dennison. Robert Gonzalez is maybe a guy we'll have to consider if we get around to the 43rd overall pick, where we pick again, and he's still available. He does look pretty solid, and he's moved way up our draft board. It's just that pitch control is so bad. Another not ranked guy that's pretty high for us is Rob Carpenter, a guy that hopefully we'd be able to snag later, assuming other teams don't find him. And in fact, let's go ahead and scout him this week, learn a little bit more about him, try to narrow down that potential a little bit more. Rubber match against the Marlins. Oh no. And this is what we were scared of. Mike Trout has torn his groin and will miss 1 to 2 months. I mean, it doesn't get more devastating than this. The whole idea of this year was to hopefully have a team around Trout where we could maybe contend for a wild card spot. Him missing up to 2 months is really, really bad. A 9-0 victory, but it is bittersweet for the Angels as Trout gets a base hit, but then has to exit with an injury. absolutely brutal, man. I put him on the 10-day because obviously there's a chance that he can return. And guys, the regression is just hitting him so hard. The window for Trout, I think, is a lot smaller than we thought it was at the beginning of the year. The depth chart screen at the start of the year had Mike Trout as an 88 in 2029. Now he's only an 83 and it's falling fast. We might have to reconsider this series. I do want to get Mike Trout that World Series, but we might need to speed up the process. I'm not sure. Things are not looking great, especially with this injury and the level of regression he has been seeing this year. I think that when he comes back from injury, he is purely a DH. We can't have him out in the field anymore. He is only a designated hitter, I think, from here on out. So then the question arises, what do we do about this team? Because Jo Adell has not been playing well, though he's been kind of surging recently. Jorge Soler, I guess, could play in the outfield, but I do sort of prefer him as a DH, especially because his fielding is so bad. There's really nobody to call up to be ready to play. Obviously, like Adell and Moniak can play in the outfield, and Ryan Noda does have a secondary position of right field, so he can play there occasionally. We may have to make a trade, go out and just sign somebody to help fill a roster spot just to sit on the bench. But it's looking really bad for the Angels with that injury. That kind of derails the whole season. Fortunately for us, Zach Neto is playing at an all-star level. He's still batting the 315, 389 OBP, and he is improving in just about every way. This is exciting to see. Even if Trout is not a part of the future, Zach Neto, I think, is the obvious building piece. He is turning into a little bit of a superstar right in front of our very eyes. He doesn't have the ceiling of a guy like Mike Trout, but still potential to be a great to even elite shortstop. So I think the obvious guy to slot into right field right now is Jo Adell, and that is just what we're going to have to do. He is not good against righties, especially in terms of contact, but if we leave him kind of high in the order where he has potential for RBI situations, he can be better just because he does have the high batting clutch. So I think we're going to leave him fourth where Trout was. He does have pretty good power. It's not as good against righties, but can definitely hit some homers. And I think that's all we can do right now. We just plug in Jo Adell as the new everyday right fielder. And again, a little bit of an unorthodox approach, but I'm going to put Nolan Schanuel at 3 and Adell at 4 just because of the batting clutch. This is against lefties, so the clutch is better than the contact for lefties with Schanuel. And of course, Jo Adell has some of the best clutch actually on the team. Nelson Rada is a guy that we could consider bringing up potentially just to be a platoon guy, although he is only 19. I'd much rather him stay down at AAA, maybe even AA, and continue to develop. He is playing pretty well right now at AAA. Tucker Flint potentially, but he's not playing well for the Bees right now. There's a pretty obvious guy sitting on free agency still that wouldn't be a terrible grab. It's Alex Verdugo. I know he's coming off of easily his worst year with the Yankees last year, but he's 28, B potential, room to grow. He seems like a pretty obvious candidate to be picked up as a sort of backup outfielder. In fact, I think he seems like by far the most obvious candidate. There's also a guy like David Dahl who could potentially just fill in for a while. Let's find out how much each of these guys costs. I really only want you for a year, and Dahl is not asking for a ton. He wants $760K. I'd even be willing to bump that up to $800 just to get that interest up a little bit. So $800K for a year-ish for David Dahl. Who knows if he'd even accept that. Whereas Verdugo wants way more money, which makes sense. He's a higher caliber player who is younger. I think we're going to try to sign David Dahl to a 1-year deal if he's willing. I'll go $800K and we'll make that offer and see. He wants more than a year. And that's the problem, is I'm just really not interested in keeping a guy like David Dahl for that much longer. We could do 2 years at the 1.6, so $800K a year. I'd be okay with doing this. He's decent depth for a situation like this, and he accepts. So David Dahl, welcome to the team. We're just going to immediately have him on the major league roster. Well, on that somber note of losing Mike Trout for quite some time, we're going to go ahead and end the episode there. A lot to figure out for this team in the coming weeks. We were kind of on an upward trend during this month of May, so we'll see if we can continue that even without Trout. Maybe Zach Neto and some other young guys step up to really keep the dream of a possible playoff push this year alive, although I'm a little doubtful of it without Trout in the lineup, who had been playing much better in recent games. A number of multi-hit games in here. Has a couple donuts in the middle of these, but definitely was trending upwards on the season. He started in the low 200s, had climbed up to a 232. But let me know what you guys think. Does this change the situation surrounding Mike Trout? The discussion during the entirety of this series has basically been, what are we going to do with him? And most of you guys had been saying that we got to try to build around Trout and get him that World Series before he leaves. But with the level of regression he's seeing, another injury, does this change your mind? Let me know in the comment section down below. But that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and for the continued support. Shout out as always to the channel members. If you want to become a channel member, you can do so by hitting the join button down below for as low as $1 per month. I'm currently working on getting ahead on videos so that channel members will receive videos a couple of days in advance is my goal. And if you find yourself coming back on the regular and you aren't already subscribed, go ahead and hit that sub button for me. It does help me out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next episode where we figure out life after Trout.